I walked into my mother-in-law's living room expecting a normal family discussion, maybe about Thanksgiving plans or my husband's promotion at work. Instead, I found Patricia sitting at the head of her mahogany dining table with papers spread out like she was running a board meeting. My husband Daniel sat to her right, staring at his phone. His brother Aaron and his wife Vanessa were there too, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. "Oh good, you're here," Patricia said without looking up. "We can finalize everything now." "Finalize what?" I glanced at Daniel, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. My stomach twisted. Patricia slid a document across the table toward me. "Daniel and I have been discussing your father's property, the house on Maple Street. We found a buyer, and the offer is quite generous. The sale closes in 3 weeks." The room tilted. My father's house. The 2-story craftsman with the blue shutters he'd painted himself. The wraparound porch where he'd taught me to read. The kitchen where we'd made breakfast every Sunday morning after Mom died. "What are you talking about?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "The house," Patricia repeated slowly, like I was stupid. "We're selling it. Daniel's already agreed. You just need to sign the paperwork." I looked at Daniel again. He still wouldn't look at me. "When did this conversation happen?" I asked, my hands gripping the edge of the table. Patricia answered before Daniel could. "Weeks ago, dear. We've been planning this for some time. It's a very good offer." Weeks ago, I felt like I'd been punched, and nobody thought to tell me. "We're telling you now," Patricia said calmly, tapping the papers with one perfectly manicured finger. "All the details are here. The buyers are eager, and honestly, that house is just sitting there. It's not generating income, it's just property taxes and maintenance you can't afford." "We can't afford?" I looked at Daniel. "When did you decide we can't afford my father's house?" He finally spoke, his voice weak and rehearsed. "Babe, it's for the good of the family. The money from the sale can help us buy something bigger, something closer to my parents. Start fresh." Fresh? The word made me sick. That house was the only thing I had left of my father. He'd built half of it himself, spending weekends and evenings adding the sunroom, expanding the kitchen, reinforcing the foundation. He'd left it to me in his will 3 years ago, trusting that I'd protect it. "This isn't your decision to make," I said. Patricia sighed like I was being difficult. "Actually, it is. Daniel's your husband. What's yours is his. That's how marriage works." I noticed something then. The document in front of me had lines for signatures, and at the bottom, in blue ink, was my name, my signature. Except I'd never seen this document before in my life. My blood went cold. Who signed my name? The room went quiet. Aaron shifted in his seat. Vanessa looked down at her hands. Daniel's face turned red, but he still wouldn't look at me. "What are you talking about?" Patricia asked, her tone sharp now. I pointed at the signature. "That's my name, but I didn't sign this." "Don't be ridiculous," Patricia said. "Of course you did. You agreed to this months ago. Don't you remember?" No, I absolutely did not remember. I would never agree to sell my father's house. Never. "I need to explain something," I said, my voice shaking but steady. "That house isn't just property to me. My father bought it when I was 5 years old. He worked 2 jobs to afford it. When my mother died, that house was all we had. He raised me there alone. Every floorboard, every window, every inch of that house has his fingerprints on it." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "That's very sentimental, dear, but sentiment doesn't pay bills. The house is just sitting there collecting dust. You barely visit it." "Because I moved here," I said, "for Daniel, for this family, but I visit every month. I maintain it, I pay the taxes." "Barely," Patricia muttered, "and those taxes are money you could be saving, money that could benefit this family. Instead, you're clinging to sentimental clutter." Sentimental clutter, my father's life work. The home where he died peacefully in his sleep 2 months after his diagnosis. The place where I scattered his ashes in the garden he loved. "Daniel," I said, turning to him. "Tell me you didn't agree to this." He finally looked at me. His eyes were guilty. "We need the money, okay? My mom's right. It's just sitting there, just sitting there." Like my father's memory meant nothing. Like the trust he'd placed in me was worthless. I stood up slowly. "Who signed my name?" "You did," Patricia said firmly. "You must have forgotten. You've been under a lot of stress lately. Remember those emotional spells you have?" "Emotional spells." I felt my face burn. What emotional spells? You know, Patricia continued, her voice dripping with false concern. The crying, the mood swings. Daniel mentioned you've been struggling. It's understandable with your father's death and everything, but sometimes grief makes us forget things. I looked at Daniel in disbelief. You told her I'm having emotional spells? He shifted uncomfortably. You have been stressed. I've been grieving, I said. That's not the same as being unstable. Nobody said unstable, Patricia said quickly. We're just saying you might not remember every conversation we've had. It's completely normal. That's why we're here now, to walk you through everything again. This was insane. They were rewriting my memory in real time, trying to convince me I'd agreed to something I would never agree to. And Daniel was nodding along like it was true. I never signed this, I said slowly, and I never agreed to sell my father's house. Well, the paperwork says otherwise, Patricia said, sliding the document closer. And it's all legal. The title is being transferred next week. Without my permission? With your signature, she corrected, which is right there. I stared at the forged signature. My mind raced. If I kept arguing, they'd just keep gaslighting me. They'd twist every word until I doubted myself. So I stopped talking. I picked up my purse and said, I need air. Daniel started to stand. Babe, wait. Don't, I said. Don't follow me. I walked out of that house with my heart pounding and my hands shaking, knowing exactly what I needed to do next. I sat in my car in Patricia's driveway for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My breath came in short bursts. I felt dizzy, betrayed, terrified. But underneath all that, something else was growing. Something cold and sharp. Clarity. They thought I wouldn't fight back. Patricia had orchestrated this entire thing, banking on the fact that I'd be too grief-stricken, too polite, too afraid of causing family drama to stand up for myself. And Daniel had gone along with it, choosing his mother over his wife. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Our joint checking account showed the usual balance. Nothing suspicious. But then I checked the savings account, the one where I'd been putting money aside for my job at the medical office. $1,300 was missing. I scrolled through the transactions. 3 withdrawals over the past 2 weeks, all made by Daniel. No explanation. No discussion. I checked the mortgage on the house I was living in with Daniel. Paid on time, nothing strange there. But when I looked at the property records for my father's house, my heart stopped. Someone had filed a request to change the title. The paperwork was dated 2 weeks ago. They'd been planning this longer than I knew. Much longer. I realized something terrifying in that moment. They truly believed I had no power, that I'd cry and beg and eventually give in. That my father's house would be sold, the money would disappear into Patricia's plans, and I'd be left with nothing but Daniel's empty promises that we'd start fresh. I stopped shaking. My hands steadied on the wheel. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to confront them again. Not yet. I was going to be smart, strategic. I was going to let them think they'd won, right up until the moment I pulled the rug out from under them. I started the car and drove home. At home, I went straight to the filing cabinet in our spare bedroom. Daniel was still at his mother's house, probably celebrating his big victory. That gave me time. I pulled out the folder with my inheritance documents. Everything was there. The will, the deed to the house, the transfer of title from my father's estate to me. All of it legal. All of it legitimate. My name was the only name on the deed. Patricia couldn't sell the house without my real signature. And if someone had forged my signature, that was fraud. But then I found something else. A manila folder I'd never seen before, tucked behind the insurance papers. I opened it. Inside were copies of my financial records, bank statements, credit card bills, even my pay stubs from work, all organized chronologically, highlighted in yellow marker, with notes written in handwriting I recognized immediately. Patricia's handwriting. My stomach dropped. How did she get these? The notes were detailed. Overdraft June 2023. Late payment July 2023. Impulse purchase Amazon August 2023. Like she was building a case against me, documenting every tiny financial mistake I'd made. And at the bottom of the folder, a printed article, signs your loved one needs financial help. I sat on the floor, staring at the folder. This wasn't just about selling the house. This was about proving I was incompetent, irresponsible, unable to manage my own life. This was about control. I thought about every conversation Patricia had inserted herself into, every time she'd criticized how I spent money, every comment about how I should save more or budget better. I'd thought she was just overbearing. Now I understood. She'd been gathering ammunition. The question was, how had she gotten these documents? Daniel came home 2 hours later. I was sitting at the kitchen table, calm on the outside, boiling on the inside. The folder was hidden back in the cabinet. I'd taken photos of everything with my phone. "Hey," he said carefully, setting his keys on the counter. "You okay?" "I need to ask you something," I said. "And I need you to be honest." He sat down across from me, looking guilty. "Okay. How long has your mother had access to our financial records?" His face confirmed everything. "What do you mean? Don't lie to me, Daniel. I know she has copies of my bank statements, my pay stubs, everything. How did she get them?" He rubbed his face. "She's just helping." "Helping with what?" "With organizing things. You know you're not great with money. You overdrafted last year. You forgot to pay the credit card bill on time twice. My mom just wanted to help us stay on track." "Not great with money." I felt something crack inside me. "So you gave her access to my private financial information without asking me?" "It's not like that." "Then, what is it like?" I asked. "Because it looks like your mother has been documenting every mistake I've made so she can build a case that I'm irresponsible." "That's not what this is about," Daniel said, but his voice wavered. "And what is it about? Why is she so invested in selling my father's house?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "We need the money." "For what?" "For us, for our future. Maybe kids someday. A bigger house." "Or," I said slowly, "for whatever your mother wants." He looked at me like I'd slapped him. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I leaned forward. "She's the one pushing this. Not you, not me, her. And you're going along with it because you can't say no to her. She's my mother. And I'm your wife," I said. "Or doesn't that matter?" He stood up. "You're being paranoid." I didn't respond. I just watched him leave the room, heard him go upstairs, heard the bedroom door close. That's when I understood completely. This wasn't about the house. It wasn't even about the money. It was about who controlled my life. And I just decided it wouldn't be them. From that moment on, I stopped sharing anything with him. I took a personal day from work and drove to a law office in the next town over. I didn't want anyone local who might know Patricia or Daniel. I needed someone who'd see this clearly. The lawyer's name was Helena Briggs. My coworker Ashley had recommended her after her own messy divorce. "She doesn't mess around," Ashley had said. "And she listens." Helena's office was small but organized. She was maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense handshake. "I'm Emma," I said as we shook hands. I sat across from her and told her everything: the forged signature, the financial records Patricia had somehow obtained, the pressure to sell my father's house. I didn't cry. I didn't get emotional. I just laid out the facts. When I finished, Helena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You're not confused." "What?" "The way you're telling this story, you keep qualifying everything. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm being paranoid. You're not. You're being pushed." Something in my chest loosened. I thought I was going crazy. "That's what they want you to think," Helena said. "This is a classic pattern: financial coercion, gaslighting, forgery. And if that signature on the sale document isn't yours, this is fraud." "So what do I do?" She pulled out a legal pad. "First, we secure your assets. You said the house is solely in your name?" "Yes." "Good. We'll file a notice with the county recorder's office that any sale or transfer requires your verified presence and signature. That stops them from moving forward with the current paperwork." Relief washed over me. "Can we do that today?" "We can start today." She looked at me seriously. "But I need to ask you something. Do you feel safe at home? Do you feel safe signing anything around your husband or his mother?" The question hit me like cold water. Did I feel safe? "I don't know," I admitted. "Then we need to be very careful," Helena said, "because if they're willing to forge your signature once, they'll do it again." I left Helena's office with a plan. It felt good to have a plan. It felt good to stop feeling helpless. First, I opened a new checking account at a different bank. One Daniel didn't know about. I set up direct deposit from my job to go into this new account instead of our joint one. I left just enough in the joint account to cover my half of the bills, but everything else went into my private account. Then I went to my father's house. I hadn't been there in 2 weeks, and walking through the door hurt. It still smelled like him. Like coffee and old books and the lemon polish he used on the wood floors. I went to his study and pulled out the filing cabinet where he'd kept all his important documents, birth certificates, the deed to the house, his military discharge papers, everything that proved who I was and what belonged to me. I took it all. Every original document. I put them in a box and brought them to Helena's office, where she locked them in her safe. Smart, she said. Never leave originals where someone can access them. By the time I got home that evening, Daniel was already there. He was in the kitchen, looking through the mail. Did we change our mailing address? He asked. My heart skipped. Why? Because there's no mail today, and I was expecting a statement from the bank. I kept my voice casual. Maybe it's delayed. Mail's been slow lately. He looked at me suspiciously but didn't push it. Okay. That night, I lay in bed next to him, staring at the ceiling. He thought I was asleep, but I was wide awake, my mind racing. The mail wasn't delayed. I'd filed a change of address form that morning. All our mail was now being forwarded to a P.O. box I'd rented. He'd notice eventually. Patricia would notice. But by then, I'd be 3 steps ahead. Patricia invited me to lunch the following week. She texted me directly, which was unusual. Let's talk. Just us girls. Olive Garden, Tuesday at noon. I knew it was a trap, but I needed to know what she was planning next. So I went. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a booth with a glass of wine. She smiled when she saw me, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm so glad you came, she said as I slid into the seat across from her. I wanted to clear the air between us. I feel like we got off on the wrong foot the other day. You tried to sell my house without telling me, I said flatly. She laughed, a light, dismissive sound. Oh honey, it wasn't like that. We were just trying to help. You seemed so overwhelmed, and Daniel was worried about you. I'm not overwhelmed. Of course you are. You're grieving. You're working full-time. You're trying to maintain a house you never use. It's a lot. She reached across the table and patted my hand. That's why I wanted to talk to you about something. Have you ever heard of a temporary conservatorship? My blood went cold. What? It's just a safety net, she said, her voice soothing. It's for people who are going through a hard time and need help making decisions. It doesn't mean you're incompetent. It just means you have support. Family support. She was talking about taking legal control of my finances, my property, my life. I don't need that, I said carefully. I know it sounds scary, Patricia continued, but it's really for your own good. Just until you're back on your feet. Daniel and I would make sure everything is handled properly. No stress for you. She smiled again. That same smile, I smiled back. That's really kind of you to offer. Her shoulders relaxed. She thought I was agreeing. I'm so glad you understand. I have some papers for you to sign next week. Nothing complicated, just something small to get things started. Something small. My entire life handed over on a piece of paper? Sure, I said. I'll take a look. We finished lunch. She paid. She hugged me in the parking lot and told me everything would be okay. I drove back to Helena's office and told her everything. They're escalating, Helena said. This is serious. What do I do? You let them think you're cooperating, and we gather evidence. The next week, Patricia invited me over again. This time, Daniel was there too. They sat me down in the living room, and Patricia pulled out a stack of papers. This is just a preliminary document, she explained. It gives Daniel and me temporary authority to help with financial decisions, just for 6 months, just while you're getting through this difficult time. I looked at the papers. Conservatorship, temporary guardianship, legal authority to access my accounts, make financial decisions, sell property. What happens after 6 months? I asked. We reevaluate, Patricia said. If you're doing better, we end it. If you still need help, we extend it. I nodded slowly. This is a big decision. I know, Patricia said, her voice gentle. Take your time. Think about it. But then she leaned forward. Though I should mention, the buyers for your father's house are getting impatient. They've given us until the end of the month. If we don't move forward, they'll walk. That's only 2 weeks, I said. I know. Which is why signing these papers soon would be helpful. Then Daniel and I can handle the sale, and you don't have to worry about any of it. I pretended to consider it. Okay, I'll think about it. That night, I recorded the entire conversation on my phone. Helena had told me to document everything. But something else happened that night. Something that changed everything. Patricia started talking too much. She got comfortable, confident, and she revealed something she shouldn't have. You know, she said, pouring herself another glass of wine, the money from the house sale is going to be such a relief. Aaron and Vanessa are drowning in debt. We promised them we'd help once this went through. I looked at Daniel. He looked away. Patricia had already promised part of my father's house money to Daniel's brother, before the house was even sold, before I'd even agreed. That's generous of you, I said quietly. Well, family helps family, Patricia said. I left their house that night with everything I needed. A recording of Patricia admitting she'd already planned to distribute my inheritance. Proof that this wasn't about helping me. It was about helping them. Helena filed the paperwork the next morning. A simple request. Copies of any documents filed in my name with the county recorder's office in the past 6 months. What came back was worse than I expected. The forged signature on the sale documents, but also an altered date. The original sale agreement was dated 3 months ago, not 3 weeks ago like Patricia had claimed, and the notarization stamp was fake. The notary listed had retired 2 years ago. Everything was traceable. Everything was documented. This is fraud, Helena said, spreading the documents across her desk. Forgery, false notarization, and attempted theft. This isn't just civil, this is criminal. What happens now? I asked. Now we decide how far you want to take this. I thought about my father, about the house he'd built with his own hands, about the trust he'd placed in me. All the way, I said. Helena nodded. Then we move forward. But carefully. We let them think they're still in control. We let them make more mistakes. Because the more they do, the stronger your case becomes. How long? Not long. A week. Maybe 2. I agreed. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Walking around pretending everything was normal, letting Patricia think I was going to sign her papers, letting Daniel believe I was too weak to fight. But I kept thinking about what Helena had told me. If you move now, they'll pivot. Let them finish showing their hand. So I waited. I almost ended it too early. 3 days before Patricia's deadline, I was sitting in my car outside her house, rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd confront them, how I'd throw the evidence in their faces. But then my phone rang. It was Helena. Don't do anything yet, she said. I'm tired of waiting. I know, but if you confront them now, they'll destroy evidence. They'll claim they didn't know the signature was forged. They'll blame someone else. You need to let them finish. Finish what? Finish digging their own grave. I sat there, breathing hard, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. How much longer? I asked. 3 days. That's when Patricia expects you to sign the conservatorship papers. When she realizes you're not going to, she'll panic. And people make mistakes when they panic. I agreed. Reluctantly. I drove home and pretended everything was fine. But inside, I was counting down the hours. I gave Daniel one last chance. I didn't want to. But some part of me still hoped he'd choose me over his mother. We were in the kitchen. He was making coffee. I was pretending to read the newspaper. Daniel, I said quietly, did you know about the forged papers? He froze. The coffee maker beeped. He poured his cup slowly, his back to me. What are you talking about? He finally said. The signature on the sale documents. It's not mine. Did you know? He turned around. His face was pale. I didn't forge anything. But did you know? He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, it was easier than fighting her. 7 words. That's all it took. It was easier than fighting her. He chose his mother. He'd always chosen his mother. And when faced with fraud, with betrayal, with destroying my life, he'd chosen the path of least resistance. Something inside me broke. Something that couldn't be repaired. Okay, I said quietly. Babe, wait. Don't, I said. Don't call me that anymore. I walked out of the kitchen. I went upstairs. I packed a bag with clothes and essentials. I left my wedding ring on the dresser. Daniel followed me, panicking. Where are you going? Somewhere you're not. You're being dramatic. I'm being smart, I said. Finally. I stayed at a hotel that night. I didn't tell him where. I didn't answer his calls. In my head, I stopped calling him my husband. He was just Daniel now. just someone I used to know. Patricia scheduled a meeting for Friday afternoon. She'd sent a formal email. Final meeting financial planning. Financial advisor will be present. Please bring ID and be prepared to sign documents. I confirmed I'd be there. I didn't tell her I was bringing Helena. Friday arrived. I dressed carefully, professional, put together. I drove to Patricia's house and parked in the driveway. Helena pulled up right behind me. Ready? She asked. Ready. We walked in together. The look on Patricia's face was priceless. What's she doing here? Patricia asked, pointing at Helena. I'm Emma's attorney, Helena said calmly. I'm here to review any documents before my client signs them. The room went cold. Daniel was there. Aaron and Vanessa. And a man I didn't recognize, presumably the financial advisor. This is a family meeting, Patricia said. This is a legal matter, Helena replied, and my client has the right to legal representation. Patricia's jaw tightened. She looked at Daniel, who looked like he wanted to disappear. Fine, Patricia said. Sit. We sat. Patricia pushed a stack of papers across the table. These are the conservatorship documents. Everything we discussed, it's all standard. Helena picked them up. She read slowly, carefully. The room was silent except for the sound of pages turning. Finally, she looked up. Who prepared these documents? My attorney, Patricia said. And who filed the sale documents for 2247 Maple Street? Patricia's face changed. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do, Helena said, because the signature on those documents is forged, and the notarization is fraudulent, and you're attempting to sell property you don't own. The room exploded. Helena didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She just laid out the facts, one by one, like she was reading a grocery list. The signature on the sale agreement dated 3 months ago is not my client's signature. The notary stamp belongs to a notary who retired in 2021. The date has been altered, and the proceeds from the sale have already been promised to third parties before the property owner consented to anything. She slid documents across the table. Bank records, property filings, the forged signature analysis from a handwriting expert. This constitutes forgery, fraud, and attempted theft. It also constitutes financial elder abuse, given that these documents were prepared and filed without the property owner's knowledge or consent. I didn't forge anything, Patricia said, her voice shaking. Then who did? Helena asked. Patricia pointed at Daniel. He did. He told me she'd agreed. He said he'd get her signature. I watched my husband's face go white. That's not true, Daniel stammered. Mom, you told me to. I told you to talk to her. Patricia snapped. Not forge her signature. You knew, Daniel said, his voice rising. You knew I didn't have her signature and you filed the paperwork anyway. They were turning on each other, right in front of everyone. Aaron stood up. I'm not part of this. Yes, you are, Helena said calmly. You're listed as a beneficiary on the proposed sale documents. You were promised $30,000 from the proceeds. Aaron's face went red. I didn't know it was illegal. Ignorance isn't a defense, Helena said. The financial advisor quietly gathered his things and left. Vanessa followed him. Patricia was shaking. This is a misunderstanding. We can fix this. No, Helena said. You can't. She turned to me. What do you want to do? I looked at Patricia, at Daniel, at Aaron. Then I said, I want to press charges. Patricia collapsed into her chair. You're going to destroy this family. You already did that, I said quietly. Daniel was panicking now. Babe, please. We can work this out. We don't need lawyers. We don't need police. We can just forget this happened. Forget? I looked at him. You forged my signature. You tried to steal my father's house. You gave your mother access to my financial records, and you did all of it because it was easier than fighting her. I was trying to help. You were trying to control me, I said, and when I wouldn't cooperate, you decided to cut me out completely. Helena stood. My client will be filing a police report this afternoon. She'll also be filing for divorce and seeking sole control of all inherited assets, citing attempted financial coercion and fraud. Patricia's face went from white to red. You can't do this. Yes, I said, I can. We left, just walked out. Left them sitting there in shock and anger and denial. In the car, I started shaking. Not from fear, from relief. You did good, Helena said. It doesn't feel good. It will, she promised. Eventually. That night, I filed the police report. The officer who took my statement looked at the documents and whistled low. This is serious, he said. I know. Are you sure you want to do this? It's family. That's exactly why I'm doing this, I said. The officer nodded. Fair enough. For 3 days, nothing happened. The police were investigating. Helena was preparing the divorce papers. The forged documents had been withdrawn from the county recorder's office. Patricia called me 17 times. I didn't answer. Daniel texted constantly, begging me to drop his number. On the 4th day, Helena called. They've agreed to a settlement meeting. What kind of settlement? Civil. They want to avoid criminal charges. They're offering to pay all your legal fees and sign an agreement stating they have no claim to your father's property. And if I say no, then we go to trial, criminal and civil. It'll take months, maybe years. I thought about it, about dragging this out, about facing them in court, about every detail of my life being examined by strangers. What do you recommend? I asked. Honestly, take the settlement, but add one condition. What? A restraining order, not a permanent one. Just 2 years keeps them from contacting you or coming near your property. Can we do that? We can try. The settlement meeting was tense. Patricia's lawyer was professional but cold. Daniel looked like he hadn't slept in days. Aaron wasn't there. They agreed to everything. All legal fees paid, no claim to my property, a 2-year restraining order. Is that it? Patricia asked when we finished signing. Are we done? We're done, Helena said. Patricia looked at me. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. When we left, I thought it was over. I thought I could finally breathe. But I underestimated Patricia. I filed for divorce on Monday. Not with drama, not with announcements. Just quietly filed the paperwork with the court. But I added something Helena and I had discussed. A request for sole control of all inherited assets, citing attempted financial coercion and fraud. I included every document, every recording, every piece of evidence we'd gathered. Daniel's attorney called Helena within hours. Your client is asking for everything. My client is protecting what's hers, Helena replied. The divorce was uncontested. Daniel didn't fight it. He couldn't. The evidence was too strong, but he did call me, once, from a number I didn't recognize. You're really doing this, he said when I answered. Yes, you're destroying the family. What family? I asked. The one that tried to steal from me? The one that forged my signature? The one that tried to have me declared incompetent? He was quiet. Then he said, I loved you. No, I said. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference. I hung up. The divorce was finalized in 6 weeks, fast by legal standards. I got everything I asked for, the house, my assets, my freedom. Daniel got a settlement, smaller than he expected, much smaller. I moved back into my father's house. I changed the locks. I installed a security system. I planted flowers in the garden, and I waited for Patricia's last move. It came 2 weeks later. Not directly to me, to my extended family. Patricia sent a mass email to every relative on both sides. The email was long and detailed and completely false. She painted me as unstable, manipulative. A daughter who'd turned her back on family over a misunderstanding. She claimed I'd threatened her. That I'd used lawyers to bully and intimidate. That I'd refused all attempts at reconciliation. My phone started ringing. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them asking what happened. Why I'd done this to Patricia. Why I'd destroyed Daniel. I didn't defend myself to all of them. Just to the ones who mattered. The ones who actually asked for my side. To them I sent a simple response. Not emotional, not dramatic, just facts. I attached the forged signature, the fake notarization, the recording of Patricia discussing the sale before I'd consented, the conservatorship documents, the evidence of financial coercion. This is what happened, I wrote. Draw your own conclusions. Most people didn't respond. Some apologized, a few said they'd always suspected Patricia was controlling, but never said anything. But the calls to Patricia stopped, the emails stopped, people stopped returning her messages. Within a month, she was isolated. Her reputation was ruined. Not because I destroyed it, but because she destroyed it herself. The court date arrived 3 months later. It was for a final hearing on the divorce settlement. Just a formality, Helena said. The judge would sign off and it would be done. The courtroom was small, quiet. Patricia wasn't there, but Daniel was. He sat on the opposite side with his attorney, not looking at me. The judge reviewed the documents. He asked a few questions. He looked at Daniel. Do you contest any of these findings? The judge asked. No, Your Honor, Daniel said quietly. And you understand that by signing this agreement, you waive all rights to the property in question? Yes, Your Honor. The judge signed the papers. The court finds in favor of the petitioner. All assets remain with the petitioner. Settlement is approved. It was over. Just like that. I walked out of the courthouse with Helena. The sun was bright. The air was cold. I felt lighter than I had in months. How do you feel? Helena asked. Tired, I admitted. But free. Daniel's attorney stopped us in the parking lot. My client would like to speak with you. I looked at Helena. She shrugged. Your choice. I nodded. Daniel approached slowly. He looked smaller than I remembered. Older, defeated. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, he said, for all of it. I looked at him. This man I'd married. This man I'd trusted. This man who'd chosen his mother over me every single time. Okay, I said. Is that it? Just okay? What else do you want me to say? He had no answer. He turned and walked away. I watched him go. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. And that was how I knew I'd healed. The final ruling came a week later. The judge had reviewed all the evidence from the fraud case, the forged signature, the fake notarization, the attempted sale. Patricia was ordered to pay restitution, $50,000 in damages and legal fees. Daniel was ordered to pay $20,000. Aaron was fined $5,000 for his participation. None of them served jail time. The prosecutor said they'd agreed to a plea deal in exchange for restitution and probation. I didn't care about the money. I cared that it was documented, that the truth was official, that nobody could ever claim I'd imagined it or exaggerated it. The check arrived 3 weeks later. I deposited it and immediately donated half to a legal aid organization that helps victims of financial abuse. The rest, I put toward renovating my father's house. New roof, new windows, fresh paint on the porch. I wanted it to feel new, not haunted by what Patricia had tried to take. My father would have approved. The aftermath was quiet, quieter than I expected. Extended family stopped reaching out. Invitations to holidays stopped coming. I wasn't included in group texts anymore. At first it hurt. I'd lost my husband's family. I'd lost some of my own family who thought I should have handled it privately. But then I realized something. The people who disappeared were the people who valued appearances over truth. They cared more about keeping the peace than protecting what was right. The people who stayed were different. My coworker Ashley, who'd recommended Helena. My cousin Trevor, who called every week just to check in. My old college roommate Nina, who drove 6 hours to spend a weekend with me when I needed company. Those people were my real family. I grieved the loss of what I thought I had. The in-laws who welcomed me. The husband who promised to protect me. The family unity I thought existed. But I didn't grieve long. Because I realized none of it had been real. It had been conditional. Dependent on me staying small, staying quiet, staying controllable. I stood alone in my father's house one evening, looking at the photos on the wall. Me as a child, my father smiling, my mother before she died. And I realized I wasn't alone. I was free. There's a difference. I spent 6 months renovating the house, slowly, carefully. I kept what mattered, the built-in bookshelves my father made. The kitchen table where we ate breakfast. The porch swing where he read the newspaper. But I let go of what didn't serve me anymore. Old furniture. Outdated wallpaper. The heavy curtains that blocked the light. I painted the walls soft colors, cream and pale blue. I hung new curtains that let the sun in. I planted a garden with vegetables and flowers. I worked from home now. I'd quit my job at the medical office and started freelancing. Medical billing and coding, but on my own terms. My own hours. I made enough to pay my bills and save a little. I didn't need much. Just peace. One afternoon, I was sitting on the porch with a book when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Patricia. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to ask why, to hear her admit what she'd done, but I knew it wouldn't matter. An apology wouldn't change what happened. It wouldn't give me back the months of stress and fear. It wouldn't undo the betrayal. So I deleted the message. I blocked the number, and I went back to my book. That evening, I sat on the porch swing and watched the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink. Birds called in the distance. The air smelled like roses from the garden. and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the fragile kind that depends on other people's behavior, but the solid kind. The kind built on boundaries and truth. I didn't win by yelling, I didn't win by fighting dirty. I won by refusing to be erased. Months passed, then a year. Life became routine. Quiet. I woke up in my father's house every morning, made coffee in his kitchen, worked at his desk. I dated occasionally, nothing serious. I wasn't ready for that yet. I traveled a little. Weekend trips to the mountains, a week at the beach. Always coming back to the house that was truly mine. I made new friends through a local book club. Started volunteering at a women's shelter. Found purpose in helping others who'd been where I was. I never heard from Patricia again, or Daniel, or Aaron. They were ghosts of a life I'd left behind. One evening I received a letter, not email. Actual paper, handwritten, in an envelope with my name on it. It was from Daniel's sister, Lauren. We'd never been close, but she'd always been kind. "I'm sorry," the letter said. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up. I knew what Mom was doing wasn't right, but I stayed quiet because I didn't want to cause problems. I was wrong. You deserved better. I hope you're doing well." I sat on the porch with that letter for a long time. Then I wrote back, "Thank you for saying that. I'm doing well. I hope you are too." I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. That night, I sat under the stars and thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the fight, the victory. And I realized the most important thing I'd learned. Blood can betray you. Family can hurt you. People you trust can lie to you. But boundaries can save you. Saying no can protect you. Standing up for yourself, even when it costs you relationships, is not cruelty, it's survival. I didn't win by being loud or vengeful. I won by being strategic. By documenting everything, by getting help from people who saw clearly, and by refusing to let anyone make me doubt my own reality. My father built this house with his hands. He trusted me to protect it, and I did. Not just the house, but myself. That's the ending nobody talks about. Not the dramatic confrontation, not the courtroom victory, but the quiet morning a year later when you wake up in your own home, drink your coffee in peace, and realize you're not afraid anymore. That's the real win. And if you're reading this and you're where I was, being gaslit, being pushed, being told you're overreacting, hear this. You're not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're not wrong. You're being targeted. And you deserve protection. Get a lawyer. Document everything. Trust your gut. And remember, family isn't people who demand control when you're vulnerable. Love isn't something that requires your signature on their terms. And you are allowed to save yourself, even if it means walking away from everyone you thought you knew. I did. And I'd do it again.